Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, what do you do when you press the record button for the podcast and your ear starts to itch? I was like, hi, my name is... Anyway, sorry.
You just move on. You just push through. Yeah. You're a professional actor. You should be able to just you should be able to move through all that and navigate it.
Okay. Not necessarily a professional actor, but I've been paid to do theater before.
See?
So technically that makes me a professional actor.
That is true.
Okay.
That is true. I've never been paid to do anything on a stage. So there you go.
And we're just being ourselves here so I can be myself. My ears drive me crazy now. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's fine. I was kind of somewhat dreading this episode because I was like, oh man, it's a Marvel movie. I haven't seen the last couple Marvel movies. And I still haven't seen Captain America Brave New World. And I'm sure it's probably even on Disney Plus. I don't know. But I just haven't gotten to it. And it never looked like the trailers didn't look that great to me. But then when I saw a couple of the Thunderbolts trailers, I was like, okay, I'll try. I'll try to, get back into the swing of things and see if they can make something different and figure out how they can move forward with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a novel way that's not just either fan service or, just retreading the same tropes. And I think they did it. I really enjoyed this movie, and I thought that it was refreshing and new, and I didn't feel like I was being pandered to, and I didn't feel like it was just lip service. Like, oh, we got to put out a movie, so we'll just put out a movie. So what about you?
I agree 100%. I have not seen Captain America Brave New World. It is not on Disney yet. You can rent it on Prime or buy it, but it's not on Disney just yet. Because like I've told you off podcast, I'm going through the Marvel saga in order from the first Iron Man, and I am at Captain Marvel, which is third from the last. So Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Spider-Man Homecoming. At least that's how they're listed on the Marvel Disney page. So I have not seen Brave New World. I didn't flinch at missing anything or thinking. They always double down and make reference to whatever we might miss, and they do very briefly in the beginning of this film. And if you've seen any trailers for the new Captain America movie, you know exactly what Julia Louis-Dreyfus is talking about. So I was good with that. I wasn't so much worried about anything that you mentioned. I don't have superhero fatigue. I don't think I ever will. I don't have action picture fatigue. I don't think I ever will. My generation is making these movies, and I grew up with comic books, and I love the worlds, and I didn't read as many comic books as I probably should have. I looked at a lot. I wasn't the greatest of readers, so I've gone back since and read quite a few that when I was a kid, I was like, I don't really understand what's going on. So I love these worlds. They are my comfort zone when I'm not sure what to watch, or if I'm having that thing where I'm scrolling through and trying to figure out what to watch, and I'm starting to get anxiety about watching something new or something I should be watching, or blah, 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 blah. I go to an animated feature that's usually DC. That's my thing. I enjoy the Marvel films. I enjoy watching them over and over and over and over again. I just do. So I knew that I was going to be okay, but I wanted the direction to be different. I wanted something to be new. I wanted something to be not what we've seen before. Person's going to explode the world. Person's gonna what's it called when you turn the atmosphere into the earth into your atmosphere? There's a term for it. What's it called?
Who did that? What do you mean? Like make a
terraform?
Okay,
it's a bunch of the animated stuff. They're always the aliens are always trying to terraform Earth and turn it into theirs, and then the Justice League has to stop them because you need, like an army from an alien world to be stopped by the Justice League, just like you do from the Avengers, because there's 10 of them, or how many they are. So they're all super on some level. Anyway, so I was pleasantly surprised that this is where they went with this film. It was smart. It was sophisticated. It The themes are very deep. There's a darkness to it, no pun intended. And I didn't know that that's where they were going to go. And I'm glad they did. And I just had a conversation. I always get into conversations with people like at the bank or at like 7-Eleven. And yeah, I have some deep conversations with basic strangers. And there's two guys at the bank where I have to deposit money for work every day. And we're always talking about The Last of Us, or he asked me about Sinners. He's asked me about the podcast. He asked me if I was going to see Thunderbolts. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to see it. And I said, you know, I'm watching the Marvel saga, and I said, Scarlett Johansson really is the heart and soul of those movies. She has some really intense and incredibly well acted moments. The first time when they're on Nick Fury's aircraft and the Hulk gets released and he comes after her, and then she's kind of down and they can't get any answer out of her, and she's having that kind of traumatic, I would say post-traumatic, but it's not because it's right in the moment, where she's just out of it, and it's just human and it's grounded, and you would think that character would be able to circumvent their emotions, but she doesn't. And then she has that great charisma with Mark Ruffalo or chemistry, I guess, and she just brings this integrity of emotions to it. And I thought, well, what are they going to do now?
Yeah.
Little did I remember.
She has a lot of deeper relationships with multiple people, with Hawkeye, with Clint.
Yeah.
I mean, and those inform multiple movies, not just Black Widow, but multiple movies in the Hawkeye TV show and all
when she shows
that.
up with Captain America at Peggy Carter's funeral. I just didn't want you to be alone. And then I thought, well, okay, well, that's gone now. Enter Florence Pugh. Enter Thunderbolts. And man, that woman is a talent.
I told you a long time ago.
You sure did. You sure did. 100% you did.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love anything that she's in, and she makes. Did you know she's like 30 years old? Like, she's made some amazing movies and great choices throughout the first 10 something years of her career. But I'm interested to see how it moves forward and the things that she can produce moving forward too, because the bigger she gets, the more she's able to put her finger on the scale of particular things, even to the point of in this movie where she wanted to jump off the second tallest building in the world, and they kept pushing back, and she was like, no, and we're going to do this. And she kept being annoying about it. And not, it wasn't even really necessarily for her only. I mean, they wanted to get stunt women to have all kinds of records and all kinds of stuff. And so she was pushing for a lot of that stuff. And so you can tell that she is the more power she has in the industry, she's going to be able to get things made and get things in front of people, I think, a little bit easier. I just like her vibe. I like her demeanor. And I mean, you know, obviously she's very beautiful as well, but I think she is able to move.
Accessible.
Yeah.
She's beautiful, but she's accessible.
And
like, I would be intimidated to talk to her just because she's worked with Anthony Hopkins and did Shakespeare with Anthony Hopkins, and that just blows my mind. So I would be intimidated by that, but I feel like she's the type of person who would put you at ease. I don't know. She could be completely different.
I'm sure. And I think that she does strike me as someone who's actually a fan of the thing that she does, as opposed to like just a workman type of a person. But I don't know her personally. So, but either way, the fact that they put her in this situation and got her involved in a group that all of these people, we're going from the Avengers to a group of, they even call it out. It's like, wait, do you just shoot people too? It's like just a bunch of people. None of us
fly.
Just shoot a bunch of people, and like nobody's really like a superhero, really. I mean, the closest is the U.S. agent, is Wyatt Russell. He's kind of got. I mean, there's Ghost can phase in and out. I mean, that's really cool. But as far as like, the kind of superhero stuff, nobody flies, nobody does any of those types of things. So it's just kind of like, wow, we're really at a disadvantage here, aren't we? And so that is those kind of things. We talk about it a lot. And I think that's, I keep comparing this movie in my head to the Eternals. Like you said, you're all here for MCU movies. You don't have superhero fatigue. You don't have, this type of oh, I don't need to see these things. I don't. I can be engaged in whatever. Just as long as something has meat on the bone. And it seems like Eternals that there was a lack of that. There was a lot of things. I think that when I compare these two movies, Eternals and Thunderbolts, Eternals tried to give each individual person the same amount of time, and I think that was detrimental to the movie. This movie does kind of the opposite. There's a lot of characters in this movie that aren't really served as well. They don't get, they have a little bit of backstory from previous movies, whether it's Ghost in the Ant-Man movies or Taskmaster, who...
Bye.
Yeah. But there are different things that happen to the characters, and you're not necessarily expected to know what happened to them or how they got to this point. You're just told early on in the movie, these guys haven't had a great time, or these guys are in a low spot. And so that's really what we need to know. And as far as like the character development, it's not essential for the story in this movie, and they don't shy away from that. They don't try to pay lip service to each individual person to give them a certain amount. You really focus in on, you get a little bit with US Agent.
Yeah, you really do when they go in the void. You get character development for this narrative.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And it seems like they probably had a lot more character development for multiple characters, and it kind of got thrown away. And I think that if it would have been inserted in there, the story wouldn't have been as cohesive, and I don't think that the character beats for the characters that we're really focused on, whether it's Sentry and Yelena and even Red Guardian, Yelena's dad, it wouldn't have hit as hard, and the movie wouldn't have traveled as quickly as it does. And I think that that's what kept me engaged, and it made me not just feel tired. When I watched Eternals, I was tired. I felt tired. There was just, and I could see the set pieces, whereas in this movie, there were set pieces. It goes from set piece to set piece to set piece. I understand that, but really they do spend a little bit of extra time in certain areas, and it is ethereal in a lot of ways, and it really spends time on emotions and depression and how that affects people and how that manifests, and how the really bad people, the Allegra de la Fontaine, whatever her name is, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, how
Valentina,
how she can try to take advantage of someone, and obviously take advantage of a situation. So, but I thought that I was expecting an anti-hero type of a movie, and yeah, these are people who did bad things in the past, and they're still somehow able to say that these people working together did a good thing. And that's really that the movie's looking for. I think that's kind of like, these people in this moment chose good. And that's really, it's about hope, I think.
Absolutely. It's also about longing. It's about longing for a purpose, and the purpose, and a family and purpose. And if your purpose is, you're okay with waking up and being, okay, what's the next assignment? Okay, assassination. What's the next assignment? Assassination, jump off a building. What's the next assignment? Assassination, blah, 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 fill in the blanks. Then that's okay. Then that's your purpose. But Yelena in particular, and a couple of the other ones too, they long for a different type of purpose. They long for a purpose that actually is going to fill them up. And what I was going to say about character development, it wasn't necessarily, you're right, 100% down the line with what you said. And like I said, the character development is in the narrative of the film. And that's, I think, the pacing, that helps the pacing also. Mm-hmm. You never slow down for somebody's backstory. You're never slowed down. And speaking of backstories, I was wondering how this was going to work, because I was like, do people know who Walker is? Do people know who the Ghost is? Do people know who Red Guardian is? Do they know who these people are? And you can invest a lot of time, but Taskmaster you don't need to worry about now. And so what are they doing here? But the the dialogue between the characters solves all those problems. Well, I was Captain America, yeah, for like 2 seconds. And then when Bucky, which I love the fact that they all call him Bucky. Just something about that's endearing to me. I don't know what it is.
Instead of Winter Soldier, like what are the options? Like Senator
Sergeant
Barnes?
Yeah, Senator Barnes, or you know, whatever his first name is. But you know, when him and Red Guardian are in the front and they're driving, what kind of serum did you get? And he goes, just the regular kind. And he goes, yeah, me too, but the Russian kind. And so you don't need much. Like if you don't know who Bucky is or the Winter Soldier is, you now know he's a super soldier who got serum, just like Captain America. I don't know how you can know Captain America without knowing Bucky. Yeah. And then you know now the Red Guardian is also of super nature, superhuman. And that fills in the blanks for all of those people. So when they do those superhuman things, it's not like, oh, wait, humans can't do that. Oh, but he is a super soldier, so that fills in those blanks. It's just like explaining that Walker, which you don't really hear about having the serum, and you'd have to know that from the show in order to know it. But the fact that he is seemingly an alpha male, but really insecure at the same time, kind of fills in all the blanks that you need. And then, of course, when you see their stories in the void, you understand that he is a facade. What you see is not what you get. And that leads to a really nice moment closer to the end of the film with him and Elena, when it's revealed what his true backstory is, or the story he's going through now. And she looks at him like, you were BSing this whole entire time? And he's like, I'm hurting, I'm hurting. So it's based in real human emotion, all of the stuff going on. And then they fill in the blanks with the little tidbits that you need. And then set piece to set piece to set piece, they also interject things like nobody flies. So you kind of understand the stakes to a certain point. And then what happens is when you get to a character like Sentry, who is all powerful, for lack of a better term, you're like, how are they going to defeat them? Yeah. And how that plays out is why I think this movie is a triumph. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we haven't talked about Sentry that much. I do think as far as the U.S. agent character is concerned, there's a scene later on in the film where, he goes into essentially his deepest, darkest room, his shame room. But you would think that his shame room would be, murdering someone in broad daylight, as Captain America, just out of rage and trying to get revenge on someone who that person killed. And you would think that would be his, most deepest, darkest shame. But what showed up, it's him not being attentive to his child and him not being able to interact with his wife. I mean, that was his deepest, darkest shame. And so that's not superhero-ish. That's not, it's not flashy, and it's a lot deeper than that. And so those are the types of choices where you're kind of like, okay, wow. I mean, they're, in a lot of ways, the filmmakers are kind of expecting the film goers to come along for this and expecting them to buy in. So, and I think that is the only reason why how they do deal with Sentry works for me, because they've kind of laid the groundwork for that. And you're right, we've talked about it in the past, and I don't know how it's going to work with this new Superman movie. I know James Gunn is doing it, so it's probably going to be at the very least funny and probably at least serviceable. But I don't know how you deal with a situation where you have someone who's invincible, and how do you, whether that person is the hero or the villain, I don't know how you interact with that dramatically, because if no one else is the equal of that thing, of that entity, then you have to figure out a novel way to deal with it. And I think that they did in this movie. But Sentry is set up as, like, I mean, is that what it was in the comics? It's a Superman comparison, or a Superman parallel, I guess.
Well, no, yes, no.
Because they can fly, and they can,
and they have a cape, and they have, he looks more like that villain from the
The
Superman
Boys.
movies. Back
Oh,
in the day, the guy who's made Nuclear Man or whatever. He's got the same kind of gold costume.
oh,
No, they're not. I don't really know Sentry from the comic books. I mean, I know of him and I know of his story, and it's similar. There's some changes, but no, it's not. He seems invincible, but obviously he's not, because he's not, spoiler alert, he's not killing people. He's sending
yeah.
them to the void.
They
And
don't
then
tell you that though.
no, they don't tell you that though, which is devastating when you're watching it.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I was like, something's got to give, and I guess maybe because I knew about him, sort of, I kind of understood where they were going. But when I'm in a movie, it's moment to moment. I'm watching it. It's almost as if it's new to me. So it's. And then when I see a moment happen, I go, oh, yeah, okay, I understand how they got that from the origin of the comic book, but that's different on this level, and that level. So, no, I wouldn't say he's a comparison to Superman. And also, there are things, if you're speaking of Gunn's new Superman, there are already things in the trailer that show that Superman is weaker than we're expecting him to be for certain reasons.
Okay.
You have to really key in on it, and you have to watch everybody who still frames everything and go, wait, what is that?
Yeah.
And there are a couple of characters. If the one character turns out to be who everybody thinks he is the equivalent of Superman, just bad.
Bizarro Superman.
Well, there's that, and then there's Ultraman.
Okay.
And Ultraman seems to be in an all black outfit. He's got the U on his chest, but a lot of people think it's Bizarro. But Bizarro really doesn't. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do that. If it's Bizarro, I don't know how he's going to take orders from Lex Luthor or whoever, the engineer, whoever's manipulated. I mean, they can probably manipulate his brain. I don't know. Bizarro's just instinctually the opposite of Superman, so he's not the smartest
So
person.
it's like Superman opposite day. That's
Yeah,
essentially what it, okay.
pretty much. That's why his S is backwards.
That seems kind of lame.
It is kind of lame.
Okay.
Yeah, Superman has a rogue gallery that has some. Yeah, it's a little lame. There's, Mr. Mixelplix, who you have to say his name backwards in order for him to disappear to whatever dimension he's from. It's a little silly. But when you grow up with the love that I grew up with,
Sure.
you just accept it for what it is. I mean,
Well,
it's
it's no Condiment Man from Batman animated series.
They made it work, in my opinion, in that one episode. They did. I'm sorry, they did. It's like Kite Man, or the guy who makes everybody sing Broadway musicals, or I forget what his name is. Yeah, they're all ridiculous. I mean, they're ridiculous, but there are writers who have found a way to make them work. It's like in the Suicide Squad, where he made all those characters in their real comic book accurate costumes work. I mean, he deleted a lot of them very quickly, but he made somebody's arms fly off their body, and it worked.
Speaking of deleting, it seems like they had initially written Taskmaster to be in the whole movie, and then they kind of eliminated that, maybe because they felt like they had too many characters. I don't know, but still, I think that it was. I mean, it sucks for Olga Kurylenko, but she got into the movie a little bit, I guess. But still, I think that as you expand that out, I think maybe they've learned from either the shows or I don't know, that you've got to kind of keep it tight. But it seems like it worked, and it also sets stakes, I think, for the rest of the movie, where it's like, oh, somebody can die. Like whereas in a lot of these previous movies, especially in the first kind of iteration, the first couple phases of the MCU, you knew nobody was going to die. I mean, then you start getting into Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's actual stakes here. But there weren't stakes for, 15 movies or something, really. So the fact that one of the quote-unquote main characters ends up dying in the first 15 minutes of the movie, or maybe it's 20 minutes of the movie, is, That's
Yeah,
setting a bar.
I wish it had been a little bit longer before she disappeared, because it kind of smelled of, oh, we've got to get rid of somebody because, one, we have too many people, and two, we need to put the stakes where anybody can go at any minute.
Yeah.
And so if she had been around a little bit longer, it would have been, I don't know, for me personally, because I did think, well, okay, that was easy, or killed somebody else. Then the stakes go to a place where they can't. But, it's funny that 15 years of the MCU, and then all of a sudden they kill everybody, or 50% of the population, or whatever you call that, I guess.
That's why Infinity War was so great. I mean, like, it just, I'm never going to leave a movie theater, in that way again. I don't think, like, that kind of like it did feel like it was like, wow, I've actually spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and just a lot of like mental energy, with these characters and with these people, and it really hit home. And then Endgame happens, and I felt a similar thing. It was a different kind of emotion, but it's like all this stuff's made up, but it's still the way that it fit together. It actually felt satisfying. And so I think that with this movie, it feels similar. I'm not saying it's the same, but it feels similar, where there's multiple times in the movie I was like, ooh, how are they going to do this and actually have it be genuine and not just like rote and not just kind of half-assed? And I think they did it. I think that it was difficult to kind of say like, hey, we're really going to go all in on mental health and depression, and we're going to really kind of try to push into this and see what happens. And that's risky, but I mean, it seems like it may be more armchair mental health, but at the same time, for somebody who's never seen it or never heard it, maybe it could even potentially help somebody. You never know.
Well, not only that, but in the confines of the film, of the narrative, they pose a question that's an interesting question. You give the serum to somebody like Steve Rogers, and he's a guy who jumps on grenades when he is 100-pound weakling. Mm-hmm. When you give him the serum, he becomes Captain America. When you give somebody who has a background that is not completely explained and that they don't completely understand, and when you do that, when you give him the serum, whatever the serum was, the Century Serum, there are possibilities that this is going to go wrong. And so I think they don't play lip service to the mental health issues. I think they present them for what they are, for the narrative and for the confines of the film. And there are probably people out there who go, okay, thank you for that, because my family's going through that, or I'm going through that, or that's interesting. I'm wondering where I would be if I got the serum. Like, what would happen to my mental stability? Am I in a good place? So it's not the responsibility of this type of movie I think they have a responsibility to treat it professionally and to treat it with respect, because it is a big issue. Mental health issues are big issues in our world, and you should take it seriously. But it's not the responsibility of the film to seek out answers that can help people, or seek out questions that can push a person or direct a person into getting their own mental health checks. But that said, imagine that 15-year-old kid who can't figure out why he or she or they can't figure out why they don't fit in, or why they're so depressed, or why they can't get out of bed, or whatever their issues are. And they like superhero movies, and they have nobody to relate to because everybody is superheroes. So how do you figure that out? And so to write a character like this and put him as the main villain, and then figuring out how to not treat him as a villain, to treat him with respect as a human, and figure out how to help him because it's going to help you, is the larger question that you're answering. And so that 15-year-old little kid or young person, could be better off because of it, and could be, hey, at least somebody sees me. and maybe I need to tell my cousin, my uncle, my sister, my friend, my parents, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, tell somebody this is how I'm feeling. And if they don't really understand, you can use that storyline to go, hey, this is how I feel. I know this is a superhero movie, but I feel as if the Void is going to take over, just like the Void took over after he became superhuman. And so I thought that was really well done. I appreciate how they wrote that in. Well, it's always been part of that Sentry character, but I appreciated it. And I came out thinking to myself, that's not what I expected, because I expected terraforming, or I expected a big evil Thanos, or I expected, how are the Thunderbolts going to figure out how to kill Starro, who's the Suicide Squad's villain even though that character's misunderstood too. So I don't want to sound derogatory or what's the word I'm looking for? Dismissive by saying it's clever. But it was clever. It was a really well done way to get those issues into this film.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the fact that that Sentry and the Void are the same person, and it wasn't even necessarily, they weren't trying to eliminate the Void. They weren't trying to kill the Void. They were trying to quench the Void and allow for the Sentry to be the Sentry, or allow for him to understand, trying to figure out why he moved into the Void as quickly as he did, and how the kill switch didn't actually kill him. It just accelerated things towards him becoming the Void. Why was he the Void, and why did that manifestation of that power reach out into all of Manhattan and into it kept spreading. And that's why when Yelena decides to go in, she's not giving up. She feels a purpose. That's her purpose. And so that's her moving. Because initially I'm like, oh man, she's hanging it up.
No, but I knew.
Yeah,
I knew. I always know it's the opposite of what you think it is. It's very, it's a very quick thought I have. Nope, I know what she's doing. She's not giving up.
Well, the fact that they killed Taskmaster, and then Red Guardian catches, Red Guardian saves that little girl, and then she boom gets voided, and it's like, okay, well, all right, there's no rules. Okay.
And Yelena seems like she's giving up throughout the whole entire film. She's on the edge, literally, in some scenes of that building.
First scene.
Yeah. You think she's giving up. I just knew that she's just a stronger character than that. And I knew that whatever she was having to work on to come close to overcoming, or to try to overcome, was not going to be just giving up. I mean, one of the other ones, maybe Walker, I would have thought it immediately that he was like, this sucks. I'm the second rate.
Done.
Yeah. I'm second rate Captain America. I'm not
my
even
wife's
really
left me with my kid.
Yeah. And like life was perfect, or really good. And so I'm done. They don't need me. Bye. That actually might've been a clever way to fool people the next time Yelena did it. And then you can find Walker in the Void and help him too. But we got enough helping. He's here to help us, not vice versa. So
yeah, I don't know if they shot other people's voids or not. I think that they were written, but not sure if it was shot, because obviously everybody had to come find Yelena and Bob in that one room, and so Yelena got there first, but everybody else kind of consolidated in on that one location.
Yeah, you don't need it at that point, because once you've touched Sentry and you go into the Void yourself, before he is the Void, that's what you need as an explanation of what the Void is. You just don't know that that's where everybody's going when the Sentry, or when the Void does that. And plus we get all of that. We get that from the Red Guardian. He's, look around, I hate my life. He's great, by the way. Gosh,
David Harbour is
great.
He's chewing the scenery, but
oh no, I love everything about it.
I mean, it's not bad.
No, I don't mean to sidestep into him, but when they're like, we need to team up, and he's like, yeah, It's so great. It's just exactly how you need him to react.
Yeah.
I actually think the wasted character is Bucky. I don't necessarily think Bucky, I mean, what does he do that he needed to do?
Well, he starts off as a castrated character. Like he starts off as someone who just is, number one, he's out of his element because he's in politics and he's in with all these people who've, crafted their images and, had a whole different history than him. And he's trying to fit in and he's trying to do all the things. And then and really the only scene that really shows you that is when they ask him if he's actually read the bill, and he hasn't, and then he's reading it and he can't even read the bill right. He gets stuff all over the paper, and he's not the guy that sits in a New York City apartment or a Washington DC apartment and reads a 500-page bill. He's the guy who gets on a freaking motorcycle and blows up Humvees. That's the guy he is. And so he ends up gravitating towards that. And how many ways are there? If he wants to get those people as witnesses or as people to testify against Valentina, you can do it other ways other than blowing up a bunch of Humvees and using winches to flip over vehicles. You can do it a different way, but that's the way he knows how to do it. So that's what he's going to do. And so he definitely seemed like he was in his element in that scene where he gets everybody together and flips over their limo and has them all tied up. So that's kind of like him in his element. So it just seemed like we waited to get him there. But once he was there, I mean, he just does.
But if you take
Bucky
him out of the
things.
film, yeah, he's great. I love him.
Yeah.
I love Bucky. I love Sebastian Stan. I like everything about him. I love
It was
the ending
very
of the
Terminator vibes, like Terminator 2 vibes,
Absolutely. But if you take him out, he adds nothing to it, really.
That's true. He's not the leader of the Thunderbolts.
No. Although they kind of make him the leader at one point, don't they say?
Well,
I
think they're going to utilize him as a leader,
right?
But there's going to be, I think the dynamic will be similar to Iron Man, Captain America. I don't even know where this is going to go because there's probably ways for them to back this out, if they need to or however they want to do. There was supposed to be a bunch of Kang stuff, and it's not in there, so they're making it work. I mean, it's
no. What I'm saying is that I thought and. It just came to me. If he had just touched him or came to the void and came out of the void, or touched him and came out of it and just been like, okay, I'm in. Because what Bucky's already going to see. Bucky's going to see Tony Stark's parents. Bucky's going to see all of them. And he says, I remember all of them when Iron Man asks him, do you remember them? He goes, remember them all. What his dark side is. And actually that's, I think that there are things in this that are for people who have followed this saga up to this point, as well as it keeps it open for people who don't know certain specific things. But really, are you going to go see the Thunderbolts if you haven't seen? I mean, if you do, it's there. You're not going to be lost. But it would have been okay for me to know and be on the inside of what, no pun intended, of what's going on in Bucky's mind without having to show it. And then he has a purpose to actually be in it, other than saving the world and figuring out that Valentina has used him and blah, 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 all that stuff. I'm not saying he's wasted. I'm just saying I have to remember he's there. I don't have to remember any of the other ones being there. It's a minor.
That's
thing.
valid. That's valid. Yeah.
It's minor.
What about the end, the very end? I mean, we've obviously already started talking about a bunch of spoilers, but this is definitely a big spoiler. We're going to talk about the very end of the movie, right before the first credit sequence and the second credit sequence and all that stuff. So definite spoilers from now on. So what about the end, when obviously she set up a press conference for Sentry, and then that didn't work out, and then she just kind of pivots and then says, hey, it's the new Avengers. So did that feel okay. I mean,
It's right along with Valentina's character. I thought it was a really
it
clever
is
way for her to get out.
opportunist.
How does she get out of this one? Again,
Yep.
she gets out of everything all the time throughout the whole entire film, throughout the whole entire series so far.
That's true.
That they've
Anytime
used her.
she's in it, yeah, because she was in Hawkeye. She was in Captain America: Winter Soldier. No, Captain America and Falcon. Yeah. Okay.
Winter Soldier. Yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I like that that's her character. So I thought that was clever. So I thought it was a really good way to asterisk and put that in there. And, the new Avengers, they're not the new Avengers.
They're not going to be. Yeah.
No. And I love their reaction. And I love Bob. He's just like, waving in the background.
So what did Bob, is Bob not Sentry anymore?
Okay. Well, first of all, Lewis Pullman, speaking of actors that we called out early on, I talked about
Bad Times at El Royale.
Yes. Everybody needs to see that just for him. He's so amazing. I need to watch it again just for him. And also, do you realize he played Bob in
Cynthia
Maverick?
Erivo's in that too.
Yeah.
That's the first time we saw her.
Yeah, well,
I saw her, I guess.
Yeah, no, I've seen her before that.
Okay.
But yeah, I knew who she was before that. I don't know if I saw her before that, but she's spectacular in that too. They're all worth seeing that movie, which you don't think structurally works, but
I don't. That Kaylee Spaney's in that too.
Yeah,
wow, geez,
and
a lot
Dakota
of people.
Johnson and Jeff Bridges, and you don't
John
think it
Hamm.
works, and John Hamm, and I agree with you to a degree, but but. Like I've said a million times, performances and acting moments can get me through whatever the narrative. When the story's not working, I'm fine with it. If you have Lewis Pullman doing what he's doing, okay. Do you realize he's Bob in Maverick also?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I knew that.
What's your call name? Bob.
Bob.
Yeah. So when they call him Bob, I was like, is that
you're like, that's not a
that's
reference,
an in joke,
but,
right?
Yeah.
No. I don't know enough about it, but I think it's explained. I don't know how it's handled in the comics. I honestly don't. But I think it's explained enough in the film with the almost throwaway line at the end with you can't have one without the other. So he is both still, as long as Bob is in control.
But he's like suppressing it or something. Like he's not like
he's not tapping into it.
Yeah, he's not like, acting like Sentry, and he's not acting like the Void, obviously.
Well, Sentry is in the movie is a character, in my opinion, that is a made up character that, he's not Sentry. He's Bob / the Void. He's wearing the Sentry
costume
and dyeing
How
the
did his hair change so quickly?
Well, he says they talk about it. They talk about he says, how do you like the blonde hair? I didn't know about it at first, but it's kind of growing on me.
But he doesn't have blonde hair at the end.
Oh, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does. Well, I don't know. That's a good question. He doesn't? He doesn't. Mm-mm. Does he have blonde hair when he comes through the curtain at the end?
No, he's wearing the same stuff he was wearing before he became Sentry, before Valentina got her hands on him.
I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I'm sure there's a whole thing on the internet.
Like a rabbit hole of that.
I'm sure there's explanations, and I'm sure there's a line we missed, and I'm sure there's a moment where somebody looked at somebody who thought about something. There it is. But I don't think he's suppressing being Sentry or the Void. I think it's like when you have depression, you have good days, you have bad days. You have days that you can function and you're functioning in a depressive mode. And then you have, depending on your diagnosis, and I don't know enough to speak about it, other than the little bit that I learned when I was working with the young people that I worked with years ago, and we had to take training and stuff like that. But there are manic phases, and, if you're bipolar, there's a whole thing there. And so maybe it's like medication. Maybe it's like some form of therapy that he's getting, some form of way that he's coping. The bottom line is that for me, there are a lot of people out there who have mental health issues, and there are things out there that can help, and I've seen them help, and I've seen people's lives get better. I find it interesting that we do have these thoughts, and the thought might never change. But if you're in a relationship, if you're in it doesn't matter what kind of relationship, professional, interpersonal, or sexual, whatever it is, just because you had that thought does not mean that you can't meet that other person in a place where your thought is not the primary thought, but it might be the primary thought to begin with. And then that person needs something else from you. So you have to learn how to cope with that space from thought or emotion to action in order to meet them halfway. And to me, that's a change. To me, that's a pattern change. So I'm very half glass, half full on this kind of subject. I'm very optimistic and realistic, but very optimistic when it comes to people's lives can be better with certain techniques and help. I've seen it. So anyway, wow.
Definitely.
That went somewhere.
Well, I did want to talk quickly about Geraldine Viswanathan, who plays Mel. Have you seen either Blockers or Drive Away Dolls?
No.
She's really good in both. Drive Away Dolls is not my favorite movie. Blockers was funny. It's got like John Cena and Ike Barinholtz and a couple other people in it. But she plays Mel. She's the assistant to Valentina, and she's really good. And I'm interested to see. Or she makes interesting choices too. But yeah, I think that was supposed to be played by Ayo Edebiri, who's in The Bear and was in theater camp and
I like
a bunch
her
of stuff. Yeah, me too. She's great. She was in Bottoms, which was really good. So yeah,
how do you say her name?
Ayo Edebiri. I always thought it was Ayo Edebiri, but it's not. It's Edebiri. So yeah, I know, right? I was like,
call me next year. I'll figure it out.
You got it. You'll have it then. But anyway, Geraldine Viswanathan does a really great job, and she's, I think she meets Julia Louis-Dreyfus, because I mean, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is an amazing comedic actress, just bar none. She's done so many different things, but this character is good because she does have a bit of a bite to her, and you're also able to. The Mel character, you kind of assume that she is that kind of like someone who's over their head, just not realizing what's going on. But then ultimately by the end of the movie, she was in on it the whole time. So so that adds more complexity to that character. And I think that without the way that she played it, I think it wouldn't have hit as hard when you realize that, she knew exactly what she was doing. She was playing all these people, assuming certain things, and having people assuming certain things of her, and not realizing that her ambition outweighed any kind of moral quandary she may have had. But yeah,
Valentina in the
good.
making.
There you go, exactly. So, and I guess she's
which I'm not so sure I thoroughly enjoyed that. Because I thought she is the voice, she's the heart, she's she's speaking for the right choice, but
everybody
for her choice.
Yeah. And everybody in this movie is, equivocated. They had, something's happened in their past. Nobody is the Steve Rogers in this movie. Nobody is the purest form of good in this movie. They're not even close. So everybody being messy is more realistic. So that makes a lot more sense. I mean, Sentry was a heroin addict, and I mean, it's like that's who we're dealing with, We're not dealing with and they kind of like
meth head.
A meth head. But they kind of dipped their toes into this with Clint after his family got blipped and him
Ronin.
Going off as Ronin and doing bad stuff. They kind of like dabbled in this earlier on, but this is kind of the first time when it's kind of like, nope, everybody in this whole scenario, nobody is blameless. So I don't know.
I was surprised
messier.
They actually went into some description of what his addictions were. I was surprised that they just didn't say he was drug addicted, or I mean, they specifically say
meth,
certain stuff. And that's a really dangerous, tough drug. And so, you got little kids watching this movie. That said, it's handled I'm not saying you should not talk about something depending on what's the age of the child, but I actually think it benefits. It benefits people to know, hey, even this guy who's ultimately going to have all of these superpowers, that he has a past, and the past is not good, and it's because of drugs, and it's because of a backstory with his father, which I did think, side note, was just a little bit cliche. And if I'm gonna ding this film, because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, I got nothing really bad to say about it. I just was like, that I
Is it
didn't
too
mean
easy? Is that what you're
well,
saying?
I don't want to say that, because that would demean what he went through. And I'm not here to say that you having abusive father issues is not as bad as what happened to Yelena, because there is no quantifying something like that. There is no like putting your pain is, stronger than my pain, or what happened to me is worse than what happens to you. That's not how it works in my mind. Mental health issues are just as strong to you as they are to anybody else, if not stronger, because you're you. I don't know. Maybe something a little bit more severe. But at that point in the film, we've seen some severe stuff already, or been shown what severity of these people's past or their inner lives have been. So did we need to see, I mean, the Yelena one is devastating, but do we need to see the Red Room? Do we need to see what Scarlett Johansson went through? That's horrible in that sequence in that movie where you see her on this, it's for efficiency. It's terrible. So yeah, I don't want to say one pain is harder than the next, and his backstory is not as severe as hers or anything like that. But I think I needed just something a little bit more intense, or a little bit more descriptive. That said, I'm fine with it. Speaking of which, I wanted to mention a little bit earlier, and I know we're getting ready to wrap up. I find it interesting that I thought that Yelena and Bob's relationship was boy-girl relationship. They were like attracted to each other, and I think that's definitely there. But really, they are attracted to each other because of their pain and because of their need to fill their voids.
Yeah.
And they're their God-shaped holes. And so it's nice to see that they didn't go there in this movie immediately. I mean, there's some sexual tension there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they're two very good-looking people, so that's just a given. She's a hottie. He's a hottie. We're expecting that. But I'm so glad that wasn't part of it, that they didn't kiss, and that's brought up later on. You have me, I have you. None of that.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm in pain, you're in pain. Let's stand together and figure out how to deal with our pain. That to me made a richer, more dense movie than anything else.
Yeah.
So
well, and it's
I thought
about
it was great.
family. It's about family too, and I know that's trite, especially considering that we've got movies. But the first Avengers movies were kind of like, oh, these are all people, and even Black Widow says that. She's like, this is what I'm living for, and that's her in Endgame saying like, this is what I've been doing. This is what is giving me purpose. And so like that's very similar now with Yelena, and she's starting to have to regain her connection with her dad or with her government subsidized father, I guess. And so it's true. And with the rest of the people in that group, they're all kind of that's, you're right. That sense of purpose is, I have to be here. I can't go because I have to be here for the guy next to me. It's similar to the military. So that's the same kind of an attitude. It's like, I can't give up because the guy next to me is counting on me. Same thing.
That same person I was just telling you about earlier, she said something very interesting to me. She's very much a believer in God. And she said that God presents a person in your life that you'll need when you need them. So in other words, you might not have a dad, but somebody will represent in your life as a dad figure. Somebody will represent as, a friend or a mother figure or an aunt or an uncle, whatever it may be, brother, sister, family member that's not biologically a family member. She believes God puts those people in your path so you can have those representatives and not go without not knowing what a father figure is. And Yelena is the prime example of that. And then when she realizes that, yeah, her life is never going to be normal, whatever that means in this world. But I do have somebody who drove all the way out to the desert to find me. And I do have this person who has got my back. And now I have this friend who has a mental health issue that I need to help. And my mental health issue is as big as his is, but I think I understand him on a level that's going to help us both. Mm-hmm. And Walker now has family to reflect how he didn't treat his real family the way that he should. It's kind of a beautiful thing. And yeah, trite, you could say that all you want, and cheesy, and we're so afraid of our emotions to label what emotions are sometimes, especially males in this society, men in this society. But I live for that kind of stuff. I live for that connection where I go, oh, Yelena is stepping over into the void to help her friend. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing to me. So yeah, it's a superhero movie, but it's got texture and levels and serious human connections and serious human emotions that I'm not sure I was expecting. And I'm glad that we got them.
Yeah, me too. So the last end credit sequence shows the Fantastic Four's ship. So, I mean, I guess we know that's happening. And I think Fantastic Four is coming out in a few weeks. So
July, I thought.
Yeah. Oh, is it July? I thought it was June. But either way, so.
I'm not sure if it's first or it's before Superman. So Superman is July 11th, I think. So okay. I think you might be right.
But either way, it's coming out. It's imminent. So I think that they're not leaving too much time between movies, so that'll be and that's another one where it seems like just seeing the trailers, it'll be interesting to see how the tone is handled in that movie, because it does look somewhat aw shucks, and so I want to see how that plays out. I know it's an alternate universe.
July 25th. It comes out after Superman.
It comes out after. Okay, well there you go. So then I guess we do have a little bit of time to wait, but seeing the trailers, I'll be excited to watch it, especially after this movie. I have a lot more hope for Fantastic Four now that I've seen this movie, and it's like, okay, maybe they're starting to get I like Deadpool and Wolverine, but that's kind of like a, adjacent type of a thing. So it'll be interesting to see once they start throwing X-Men into the bowl. That'll be really, really confusing and very
well. They're throwing the old ones in, and then they're bringing new ones in, and so it's going to be complicated. I guess I'm just easy. I guess I'm just an easy kind of guy. Just because one meal has filet mignon and then the next meal has corn dogs doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the meal with corn dogs just as much. Okay. So Ant-Man and the Quantumania wasn't one of my favorites, but I did enjoy it. I mean, I think it's flawed comparatively speaking, but I don't think that it takes away from my experience with that movie. I was thinking after that movie, what will it be like now to watch Quantumania? It's been a while. I remember Quantumania, but it's going to be interesting because there are things in both the first Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp that relate to Quantumania. And now that I remember those and know that, will that movie be different to me? I don't know. But I just feel like somebody once said that in America, we put things on a pedestal just to knock them down, that other cultures in other countries, and don't get me wrong, I love living here. I love America. I'm not dissing on America. I'm just saying we do have a tendency to like love, and then just can't wait to beat it up. There's a backlash usually. And I just don't have that backlash gene. I just don't. I just am. Give it to me. I think the Fantastic Four looks great. I think James Gunn's Superman looks great.
It does look good.
There are tones and attitudes in there that I go, that's good. That's good. I get that. Oh. So, and it might be because, I was raised with comic books and superheroes, but I still think you cannot deny something like the narrative of Thunderbolts. You can't deny it. It's consistent from moment one. It teaches us something about the human condition. It teaches us about characters that we might not like. And in the end, it is structurally a satisfying movie.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right. Well, that's a good place to end it, I think. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. And we're on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. We'll see you next time.